It's a strange feeling, isn't it? That quiet, persistent sense that the years are somehow picking up speed. We look at a calendar and 2026 doesn't feel like a destination anymore. It feels like something that's already half gone before it's even arrived. Most of us approach a new year like a project. We gather our resolutions, we sharpen our discipline, and we promise ourselves that this time we'll finally become the person we've been rehearsing in our heads. We want the best year of our lives. But if we're honest, we've said that before. And yet, even when the goals are met, even when the promotions come or the habits stick, there's often this hollow vibration underneath it all, a sense that we were so busy building a life that we forgot to actually be the one living it. The paradox is that we can be moving forward with incredible momentum, checking every box, and yet feel like we are barely here. We're ghosts in our own trajectory. I want to be clear, this isn't a video about how to win 2026. There are enough people telling you how to optimize your morning and outrun your distractions. This is an exploration of something much quieter. It's an inquiry into what we miss when we're looking for the next thing. What if the reason our years feel shorter isn't because we're getting older, but because we're getting less present? What if a best year isn't something you create through effort, but something you recognize through a different kind of attention? Before we look at the calendar, we need to look at the lens we're seeing it through. I'm not here to offer a blueprint or a set of rules. I'm just a fellow traveler, wondering if we can find a way to move through the next 12 months without losing ourselves in the process. If you're feeling that same restlessness, that sense that life is moving and you're just trying to catch up, I invite you to stay with me for a moment. Let's see what happens when we stop chasing the year and start noticing it. Think back to when you were a child. A single summer afternoon felt like an eternity. The space between lunch and sunset was a vast, unmapped territory. But now we blink and a season has changed. We often tell ourselves this is just a biological inevitability, that as we age, each year represents a smaller percentage of our total life, so it feels faster. There's some truth to that, but it misses the more intimate reality of how our brains actually record time. We don't measure our lives in minutes, we measure them in markers of novelty. When everything is new, the brain is wide awake, taking detailed notes, stretching out the subjective experience of time. But as we settle into the grooves of adulthood, we trade novelty for efficiency. We develop routines, we stop looking at the road while we drive, we stop tasting the coffee while we drink it. When your days become a series of predictable loops, your brain stops hitting the record button. It summarizes. It looks at a month of work, gym, sleep, and files it away as a single, blurry folder. This is why a year can feel full of activity but empty in memory. You were busy, but you weren't there for the data entry. You were operating on a sophisticated form of autopilot. The tragedy of the best year narrative is that it usually encourages more of this. It tells us to plan more, schedule more, and automate more. We try to compress our tasks so we can get to the good part of life, not realizing that the act of compressing is exactly what makes the time disappear. We treat the present moment as a corridor, a space we have to walk through to get to the room where our real life is supposedly waiting. But if you spend the whole year in the corridor, looking at the door at the end of the hall, don't be surprised when you reach December and feel like you never actually lived in the house. There's a specific kind of grief in realizing you've been successful at things that didn't actually require your presence. You reached the goal, but you weren't there to receive it. We think we're losing time because we're busy, but we're actually losing it because we're familiar. We've stopped being surprised by our own existence. The question we have to ask ourselves as we look toward 2026 isn't, how much can I get done, but how much of this am I willing to actually see? Can time feel full without the life circumstances changing at all? Before we try to change the furniture of our lives, we have to realize that the lights have been off. We've been moving through the rooms in the dark, wondering why we can't see the beauty we've worked so hard to pay for. If time is the canvas of our lives, then attention is the paint. Whatever we give our attention to becomes our reality. But in the world we're living in now, our attention is rarely ours. It's been harvested, fragmented, and sold back to us in pieces. We think we're just checking a notification or scrolling through a few headlines, but what we're actually doing is teaching our minds to live in a state of permanent fracture. When your attention is scattered across a dozen different digital spaces, your felt experience of life becomes thin. It's hard for a year to feel meaningful when you are never fully in the room you're standing in. We've all had those moments where we're sitting with someone we love or watching a sunset, but our mind is 3 steps ahead, replaying an email, anticipating a conflict, or wondering how this moment would look if it were shared online. This isn't just about being distracted, it's about the erosion of the self. Meaning doesn't exist in the objects or events themselves. Meaning is something that arises when a human being brings their full, undivided presence to a moment. When that presence is missing, life starts to feel like a movie with the sound turned off. You can see what's happening, you can follow the plot, but you can't feel the resonance. We often mistake busyness for fullness. We think that because our minds are constantly occupied, we are living deeply. But a cluttered mind is not a full one. In fact, a cluttered mind is often the loneliest place to be, because it's so crowded with noise that there's no room for the actual experience to land. We end up with a year that feels like 1,000 tabs open in a browser. Lots of information, lots of movement, but no cohesion. The real cost of this fragmented attention is that we lose the thread of our own continuity. We become a collection of reactions rather than a steady presence. We react to the news, we react to the algorithm, we react to our own anxieties. And at the end of the year, we wonder why we feel so exhausted despite not having done much. It's because the effort of constantly switching tasks and refocusing is the most draining work a human can do. If 2026 is going to be different, it won't be because we found a new productivity hack. It will be because we reclaim the right to look at one thing at a time. It will be because we decided that our presence is too valuable to be given away to anything that vibrates in our pocket. When you own your attention, you own your time. And when you own your time, the year stops feeling like a blur and starts feeling like a life. We like to think we see the world as it is, but mostly we see the world as we are. We move through our days draped in a collection of old stories, narratives about who we are, what we deserve, and what is possible for us. These stories act like a filter over the lens of the new year. If your internal story is that you are someone who always struggles, or someone who is never quite enough, then 2026 will simply be the stage where you perform that script once again. The mind has a deep, biological craving for consistency. It would often rather be right and miserable than be wrong and happy. This is why we find ourselves repeating the same patterns in our relationships, our work, and our health, even when we've vowed to change. We aren't just fighting bad habits, we are maintaining an identity. We are protecting the me we've spent years constructing, even if that me is someone who is perpetually stressed or overlooked. These narratives live in the quiet background of our minds, dictating our choices before we even realize we're making them. They are the reason you might sabotage a good moment because it doesn't fit your story of being unlucky. They are the reason you might overwork yourself to the point of collapse because your story says your worth is tied to your output. Most of what we call life is actually just the externalization of these internal scripts. The illusion is that a better year requires a new you. Every January, the culture screams at us to transform, to upgrade, to delete the old version of ourselves. But you can't build a meaningful life on top of a self you're trying to escape. If the foundation of your change is self-rejection, then even your successes will feel like a mask you're afraid will slip. What if, instead of trying to write a new story, we just started noticing the one that's already playing? What happens when you realize that "I'm not good with money" or "I'm destined to be alone" isn't a fact of nature, but a sentence you've been whispering to yourself for a decade? When you start to see the story as a story, it loses its power to drive the car. You don't have to fight it or kill it, you just have to stop mistaking it for the truth. 2026 doesn't need a perfected version of you to be a great year. It just needs a version of you that is willing to see past the old filters. It needs you to realize that the person you were in 2025 doesn't have to be the architect of what happens next. The moment you stop living inside the story is the moment you actually start living in the room. There is a subtle trap hidden in the concept of making this the best year. It's the trap of constant becoming. We live in a culture that treats the present as nothing more than a bridge to a better version of ourselves. We tell ourselves that once we hit that weight, once we save that amount of money, or once we find that specific peace of mind, then we can finally start the business of living. We postpone our presence until we've reached a destination that is always moving. The paradox of self-improvement is that the more we focus on becoming, the less we are being. We treat our lives like a house that is perpetually under renovation. We're always living in the dust and the plastic sheeting, waiting for the day when the work is finally done so we can invite people over and relax. But in life, the renovation never ends. There is always another floor to fix, another room to paint. If you're waiting for the completion of yourself to enjoy your life, you are waiting for a moment that doesn't exist. Striving is a seductive drug. It feels like progress. It feels like we're taking responsibility. But often, it's just a way to avoid the vulnerability of being right here, right now, with all our imperfections. We use the future as a place to hide. We tell ourselves we'll be more generous when we have more, or more patient when we're less busy. We project our best qualities into a tomorrow that never arrives. What if 2026 isn't a mountain to climb, but a landscape to walk through? What if the best year isn't the one where you finally fixed everything, but the one where you finally stopped trying to fix yourself long enough to notice that you're already alive? When we soften the striving, something strange happens. We don't stop growing. In fact, we usually grow more effectively. But the growth comes from a place of nourishment rather than a place of lack. We stop running away from who we were and start moving toward what we love. There is a massive difference between the effort of a man trying to escape a fire and the effort of an artist lost in a painting. Both are working hard, but only one is actually free. If you want this year to be different, try loosening the grip on who you think you're supposed to become. The pressure to arrive is exactly what makes the journey feel like a chore. The relief you're looking for isn't at the end of the year. It's in the realization that the search for a better life is often what's keeping you from the one you already have. If you look back at your most cherished memories, they are rarely the moments where you were checking something off a list. They are the moments that caught you off guard. The way the light hit the kitchen table on a Tuesday morning, a conversation that went on 2 hours longer than it should have, the sudden, quiet realization that you were safe. These moments weren't achieved, they were witnessed. We have been conditioned to believe that a meaningful year is a high-definition highlight reel of accomplishments. But meaning is actually much humbler than that. It's found in the quality of your perception. Presence isn't a practice you add to your morning routine like a supplement. It's an orientation. It's the decision to stop treating the current moment as a stepping stone to the next one. Imagine what 2026 would look like if you stopped trying to get through your days and started actually inhabiting them. This doesn't mean you stop having goals or that you suddenly become immune to stress. It just means that when you're in the stress, you're there for it. When you're drinking the water, you're tasting it. When you're listening to a friend, you're not just waiting for your turn to speak. There is a profound intimacy that comes from meeting life on its own terms, without a list of demands. When we drop the requirement that every moment must serve our progress, the world starts to open up. We begin to notice the small, shimmering details that we've been walking past for years. We realize that the boring parts of our lives are only boring because we weren't looking closely enough. This is the shift. It's moving from a life of doing to a life of noticing. It's the understanding that you don't need a more exciting life, you need a more sensitive nervous system. You need to be home when life knocks on the door. As we move toward this new year, perhaps the goal isn't to change what we see, but to change how we see it. Because the truth is, the best year of your life is already happening. It's happening in the breath you're taking right now. It's happening in the quiet space between your thoughts. It's not waiting for you in 2026. It's waiting for you to notice it. We often wait for the calendar to turn as if a new number will provide a new perspective. We look at 2026 like a fresh piece of paper, hoping this time we'll write something that finally makes sense. But the year isn't a blank page. It's a continuation of the same awareness that is reading these words right now. The truth we've been circling is that the year doesn't wait for January to begin. It's already in motion. Every time you catch yourself rushing toward a future version of yourself, or every time you notice your attention drifting into a digital fog, you have a choice. Not a choice to be perfect or to be optimized, but a choice to return. The best year of your life isn't a trophy you win in December. It's the sum total of the moments you were actually present to receive. It's found in the loosening of the grip, the softening of the striving, and the quiet realization that you are not a project to be solved, but a human being to be experienced. As you step into the coming months, I hope you allow yourself the grace to be unfinished. I hope you find the courage to look at your life without the old filters. And more than anything, I hope you realize that nothing essential is missing. You don't need to chase the year to live it. You just need to stay in the room.